Welcome to Hacking the Hustle. This is your host, Benjamin Sklar, and I'm really excited to have the CEO of WOLACO, Terry White, on the show today. How you doing, Terry?
I'm good. Good, man. I like that name, Hacking the Hustle.
Thank you. That's what we're trying to figure out right now, how to hack the hustle. We all are trying to learn it, aren't we?
It's true. That is
Yep.
true.
So for those listening, Terry is the founder of WOLACO, which is an active lifestyle apparel brand headquartered in New York City. He's the former captain of the lacrosse team at Harvard, and he's a great entrepreneur that I know who's making things happen in New York City and especially in the sports brand space, apparel industry. So really interested in learning about what he's got going on, the things he's seeing in the market, and the lessons Terry's learned in his journey so far. So let's just kick it off, Terry. Tell us about how'd you get into Harvard? What made you want to go there?
You know, I was not a great student. And I know I say that and people are like, oh, sure. You went to Harvard. Okay. Like stuff. But like genuinely, somehow I figured it out, maybe hacked something.
Yeah.
But, but no, I played lacrosse in college, so I was fortunate to be recruited to Harvard to play there. Um, and one of the things that I like to tell people is that, um, well, I guess before that, but like I said, I didn't. I've identified in myself that I usually like to take kind of the most difficult path. For some reason, I put myself through the agony. And I think there's certain parallels to entrepreneurship, right? It's definitely not the most simple path, but for some reason I'm inclined to pursue it. But
Mhm.
I had to really step it up to be academically in contention to be recruited to Harvard. And my senior year, I had to take hard classes, APs that I didn't really have any business being in. And I've always been a little bit of a grinder. But anyway, Harvard, I loved it. And as much as it's an incredible institution, and I think more than anything, it's very worldly, and it opens up your mind a bit.
Mhm.
Meet lots of really inspiring people. um, I really, more than anything though, I was very passionate about my sport and my
Mhm.
team. And I loved lacrosse. I loved just being a part of the team atmosphere and striving towards something and working really hard with a group of people. And that's really where like my passion really lived. And I ultimately, my senior year, was elected captain of the team, and it was a very prideful moment. And I think one of the things I told myself during my senior year was that the passion that I have for that team needs to be the standard for whatever it is that I do in my life, professionally. And I think that's, ultimately the void that entrepreneurship has filled. I had a very difficult time finding that same enthusiasm for more traditional career paths.
Mhm.
And, I learned that through internships, and then a job in real estate right out of school. Um, but yeah, being an athlete is a big part of my background, and that passion for being in that team environment, I think, inspired entrepreneurship for me.
It's interesting.
Sorry,
I,
someone popped
I
up on my
played
screen.
I played a sport in college, and the captains of the team are a unique brand, a unique breed of people to be elected as captain. So, what do you think differentiates people who aren't captains to those who are?
Um, you know, it's tough. I don't know. I think there's a sense of, there's a sense of, like I said, I think just like deep love for whatever that activity is, and
Mm-hmm.
the process of it all. And I think I do think there ultimately needs to be a little bit of like especially if you're dealing with college athletes, there's always a little bit of maybe maturity that goes along with it at a younger age, where
Yeah.
you're able to kind of like say, all right, guys, like I'm willing to kind of rise above the chaos and stand up for what, you know, we really, what really needs to happen here. Like maybe we don't need to go out tonight. Like
Yeah.
let's be smart here, and not a willingness to stand up against things and put your like personal dignity or put your pride to the side a little bit. You know, you're not worried about your buddies saying, "Hey man, stop being a buzzkill." You know, like you're able to, I guess it's maybe just having a sense of humility. And it's something that's really become an important part of my life today. It's like, it's so unforgiving. And being in a business like mine, you just have to, you kind of there's just no ego, you know, humility is so important. And I definitely think there are ties back to captaining a team.
Right. So tell us about your business. Tell us about WOLACO.
Yeah, so WOLACO also, I think, in a lot of ways comes from my roots as an athlete. Before lacrosse, it was just like that was my life, season to season to season. And on top of, you know, looking to fill that void with entrepreneurship, I started to grow very passionate about health and active living. And I started to realize, you know, as a young, ambitious guy that wanted more for myself, started to realize how important that active lifestyle was to me becoming my most effective version. And I started to realize it pretty early. I think most college athletes, you ask anybody, maybe, you know, high school athletes too, when you become a young professional, I think almost everybody struggles with, how do I acclimate? How do I figure out, how do I stay healthy? How do I keep my energy up during the day? How do I seamlessly integrate healthy decision making when a lot of the culture around me is pulling me in the opposite direction? And when I started to identify that there's like almost like this human optimization that can be achieved by making great decisions and standing up for your health, I became really kind of obsessed about it and felt pretty strongly that there wasn't a brand that was representing it in a way that I wanted to be represented as a young professional. There wasn't a brand speaking to me directly. And I developed these sentiments.
Why wasn't Adidas Nike speaking to you?
I mean, I think part of it is just they've become so large. I also think that those brands are built on, you know, professional sports. So that's where they came from. And this opinion that I had was that, you know, as a everyday athlete that was just trying to kind of make it, I got kind of like the trickle down apparel from sports. It was like, there wasn't apparel that was made for me to like go and no one was treating me like a professional athlete. You know what I mean? And, you know, but that's what those big brands were built on. I think the world has changed so much. Back then, Nike needed Steve Prefontaine to reach millions because he was competing on the Olympic stage and setting records. And that primetime spotlight is how you garnered impressions and visibility. Now that whole kind of paradigm has shifted and it's become a bit more democratized. So, you know, we don't need LeBron James. There's a lot of other, you know, ways to reach people in a more targeted fashion. So it's definitely leveled the playing field. But yeah, and then on top of it, I think there's an old school mentality with retail where there's kind of like this wall up between like the brand and the consumer, or it's kind of like faceless enterprises. And the world is changing. I think with digital media, there's this opportunity to really bring a brand to life and to communicate more transparently. And I also think that's just what the future needs to hold. That's what the consumer demands.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to kind of get there first and be a bit more transparent and more authentic.
It's really
The brands.
interesting. So you feel like your content strategy is trying to convey authenticity and transparency?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. It's to some degree, you learn along the way. There are limitations to doing too much of that. You can only scale a business so far by being too hands-on.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I think we've had to iterate and learn along the way and find more efficient ways to scale authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
For example, we're getting ready to launch YouTube. And in my opinion, that's a really great channel. I mean, we're already on YouTube, but like really launch a more robust content strategy on YouTube.
And a organic, like on your own channel, or paid advertising?
On our own channel.
Mm-hmm.
I think there could be some paid tactics to kind of drive additional traffic, but really more about feeding that content, adding value, feeding it back into our ecosystem, getting creating content that adds value so that we can pass it back to our customers and
Right.
drive customer loyalty.
So I feel like I want you to, from a bird's eye view, explain to the people listening, what is WOLACO?
Right. Yeah, of course. WOLACO is an active apparel brand. WOLACO stands for Way of Life Athletic Company. And I was told you guys about the sentiment that I developed as a young professional and the need for a brand that kind of understood me a little bit better. But the thing that really served as the catalyst was an idea that I had as a young guy living in New York City when I left my apartment to go for a run, and I was carrying my phone in my hand and then putting my apartment keys in my socks. And every time I went out for a run, and I was like, I had this conversation with myself where I'm like, well, I plan to do this a lot more for the rest of my life, and this just doesn't really make a ton of sense. So it was in that moment that I had the idea to develop compression shorts with pockets built into it that were sweat proof, where I could store away my phone. I wouldn't even feel it. It would be like it wasn't even there. And then I could actually focus on what I was doing. Because that's the other thing as a young professional, especially like you're in this new city, you've got a job, like life's swirling around you, there's social pressures. Like you go out for that run or that workout, you want to be able to focus. You want to be able to just disconnect and like focus on it.
Mm-hmm.
Not have to worry about like, oh, am I going to fall and drop my phone? This is the last thing that you want to have on your mind. So yeah, when I had the idea for that product, it was very much a light bulb moment, because I was already been developing these feelings and these sentiments. I wasn't really fitting into corporate America. I was kind of itching for something else. I felt passionately about active lifestyle, and when I had the idea, I was like, this could be my catalyst for something bigger.
Mm-hmm. So now, what are the challenges that you're facing today?
I think a lot of the typical challenges. Growing a business. I think I picked one of the more difficult industries to be in. I think.
Why is that?
I mean, apparel is very difficult. Like historically, you think about it on a very fundamental level. What am I asking people to do? I'm asking people to take this clothing, put it on their bodies, and wear it out in public. Like humans are very self-conscious. Like, like we're wired in a way where we're very particular about that. So it's difficult to build a brand that people feel strongly enough to, put that product on, and on top of it, to be excited about it
Mm-hmm.
and be like, yeah, like, I like how this looks, I like how it feels, and I like the brand behind it. It's just a very like, um, it's a blend between the qualitative and the quantitative, and psychology, sociology. Um, it's just really interesting social experiment.
Yeah. What have you learned from studying psychology and thinking about how we humans think? What insights have you learned about how to better market your product?
I think, when you're selling something, it's, especially in my industry, you want to focus on, like, your first inclination is to focus on like the very specific um, features. Oh, we put a zipper pocket here to do this, to do that. Um, but it's more, I think what's most compelling is really, for one thing, the story around it,
Mm-hmm.
and how it came to be, why it came to be, and then what it is that it allows you to do. What does this unlock for you? Forget about the product. Like, let's forget about the product. Let's talk about what it can do for you and how it can improve your lifestyle. So, focusing less on the widget itself and more on what the widget does, and what it can do for you, the
Mm-hmm.
customer. And like, for example, I launched the brand on Kickstarter. We launched our compression short on Kickstarter, and um, Kickstarter was all about, of course, we're featuring this very simple problem in the pocket, but it required me to like really highlight the pain point and really get people to understand, oh yeah, like, this is a big lifestyle problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I needed to build a campaign that also, was feel good enough and was well branded, so that people would come to that page and they'd say, okay, I trust these guys. They're asking me to give me their money, or I'm asking them, they're asking me to give them my money, and um, with the promise the product will show up in like 60 days.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to really trust what's happening there. So, building out the whole campaign, the experience, making it, less focused on, oh, this product just does this one little thing, and more on the lifestyle surrounding it and all the value that it can add to that person. So, we catch ourselves a lot worrying too much about the widgets, and we have to remind ourselves, like, what does this really unlock, and what does this do for somebody's lifestyle?
Mm-hmm. It makes me think of Nike's commercial with Colin Kaepernick. And do you feel like if you have to build a brand that's represents principles, values, something bigger than the widgets themselves, do you feel like you have to jump into politics in some way and uh, get involved with a specific social impact movement that's controversial?
Um, yeah, I mean, like, I definitely feel a responsibility as um, as a young brand, as a millennial brand, to set a higher standard, and to be a little bit more progressive. So, there are certain things that we do with our supply chain. A lot of what I've built out is centered around sustainable products that last longer. In addition to just needing a place to store my phone, I, as an athlete, I wore a lot of Nike compression, and a lot of it just like falls apart and withers away very, very quickly. So another pain point that I was solving was just higher quality compression gear and products that last longer. Um, and all of those little elements are extremely important for reducing waste in the kind of fashion cycle, reducing the fast fashion part of it all. And it's a value proposition, and that I'm really leaning into right now, and further developing, really building out a more bespoke active wear program where, design is extremely intentional, core product styles that we know people want. That's, and backing that with data, um, to really figure out what are those styles that people actually need and will buy at scale. And building out a more intentional program. A lot of apparel brands lean or rely very heavily on fashion. There's this like rapid turnover of seasonal garments. And the problem with fast fashion is that it's all built on speculation. You don't know what people are going to buy because it's a completely new print or colorway or style that's their customer has never seen before. And within all of that, there are a lot of inefficiencies. So yeah, when we're very fixated on finding sustainable solutions within our supply chain. And then social impact. I mean, inclusivity is important to us. And being being candid, like, this summer with the Black Lives Matter movement, we thought we were inclusive. You know what I mean? We were community centric here in New York City, host these big workouts where hundreds of people show up. We're not a macho brand. We focus more on psychographics, in terms of how do you live life? How do you look at life? Do you care about your health? Like, if you care about your health and you're a positive person, like, come on into the community. It doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter what you look like. And that's always been our mantra. But we learned that there's more work to be done there. There's so much more that we can do proactively, and we were not, hitting the standards the way that we could be. So yeah, we definitely feel a sense of responsibility to do it the right way.
Interesting. How do you feel like you can get a competitive advantage in figuring out what people want?
Well, I think that comes largely down to trusting myself in a lot of ways, honestly. I think if you're in my shoes and you've built something that people have responded to, as you go, you're going to get more and more people in your ear telling you what you should and shouldn't do. But a lot of everything that I do is like, I'm building for the future. I'm building into where I believe that the world is going. So, I've learned by, mistake, that some, that I need to listen to my gut, trust my vision. And, I have opinions about where I think the world's going. And I think a big part of building businesses like mine, a brand like mine, is that you have to, you have to really try to build into the inevitabilities of what, the human race is like, where things are going. I think that's the best business to build is one that is riding, one of those inevitable waves. So yes, this is where the world is going, and we're trying to get there We're trying to get there as soon as we can.
So where do you think it's going in the next 2, 5, 10 years? What's the vision?
Well, I think the active apparel market, the active apparel industry is broken.
What does that mean?
It's similar to what I was referring to before. I think you have a lot of like venture capital backed concepts and brands just trying to make a quick buck on a trend, on an athleisure trend, active apparel trend. But there's a lot of lack of sensitivity to doing it correctly. If you throw a ton of money at a trend, at an inevitability that is something like active apparel, of course, like, things will continue to move in the right direction, revenues will grow, but it doesn't mean you're doing it sensibly. It doesn't mean that you're being usually, actually, if you are growing too fast, you're probably not being thoughtful enough. And I think the fashion industry, I don't know, as a whole, is, in my opinion, going to be the next big like exploitation as it relates to the climate crisis and environmental protection. It's, I think, I don't have this fact checked, but you can check it for me. But I believe the fashion industry is possibly the largest contributor of waste to landfills across the world. If not the largest, like it's in that top ranking. So there's some real problems, and in the active apparel specifically, active apparel industry specifically, synthetic fibers, for the most part are rooted in polyester, which is, essentially a byproduct of plastic. So if it's not recycled, it's just very, it's not very different than single-use water bottles entering the world, and straws. It's like there's not a ton different. So it's, you've got a bunch of brands that are just hungry, pumping money into the space, and we want to, one of the things that I think will inevitably separate WOLACO is our intentional approach to building products that people need, that are well constructed. And, we really want to build out that core active apparel program from like head to toe for men and women. We want to source fibers sustainably and create efficiencies in our supply chain, and then build, the e-commerce experience to really match that. So kind of the anti fast fashion for activewear to some degree.
Sounds really exciting. Sounds like you have a bird's eye view, big picture of what are the problems in the industry as a whole, and how you want to align WOLACO not only on the business front, but also as a player in the entire space.
Yeah, it's like sometimes when there's a frenzy on the surface, right? Like you throw the big fish in the water with all the sharks, the tuna that's cut in half, throw it in the water, and all the sharks, the frenzy on the surface. But if you kind of, they take the bait, and then you can kind of be a little bit more methodical and thoughtful about it, inevitably, I think you'll win in the long term if you're taking the smart approach. So
right,
it's kind of how I think about it. It's definitely, the industry is competitive. Like the active apparel industry is very, very competitive, especially right now. So it can be a little bit intimidating at times, but just got to stick to your guns.
I believe you. So if someone listening wants to start their own apparel brand or brand in general, what would be some words of wisdom that you would share with them?
Don't do it.
That's great. I feel like that's the advice for so many questions. Like, should I start a podcast? Don't do it.
Well, I actually think it's probably the right answer, because it's hard. So, you want to spook people a little bit, because like, test them, right? And then if you really are passionate about it, you're gonna say screw you, and you're gonna go do it. But I think it's a unique time in history. I think you need to have that perspective, and not only because of 2020 and everything that we're going through, but just with the ability to sell products online, to sell directly to customers online. It's a unique time to be alive. And there's something really interesting about how that like business to customer relationship exists, because you can leverage data and different technologies to really evaluate whether or not whatever good it is that you want to sell to somebody is in demand or is of interest to a certain pocket of people simply by putting it up on a website and then steering traffic to it. So there's an ability to be very iterative, and there are not a ton of excuses to not try to test something out.
Mm-hmm. How do you think you
Because
create a trend? How do you think you do you think if LeBron James were to wear a WOLACO sweatshirt, or you would see another superstar wearing your brand, is that what needs to happen for you to get to the next level? Is that a requirement, or is that only a quick fix?
I don't think it's a requirement. Sometimes it can happen in the inverse, and you create enough of a movement, and then the celebrities like want to wear it. That can be it's very real. Like that happens. I think the celebrity thing, if the impact that it would have now versus like for me 3 or 4 years ago, the impact now would be much more powerful than what it would have been. Well, the impact now would be more sustainable, right? Like if because we have a more a stronger foundation set, we can do more with that buzz and that influence. Whereas early on, chances are you still have a lot, it would give you a nice surge, but it would still remain to be seen as to like whether or not you could keep the business together. And really, chances are there's more infrastructure you need to build out. But yeah, it's also a unique time on that front in terms of the amount of people that have influence. It's not, at one point, the Michael Jordan era, the attention was kind of channeled through a handful of vehicles, whereas now influence is kind of everywhere.
What do you feel like sorry, you continue, please.
No, I was just saying if done right, it can definitely be impactful. But you got to be systematic about it, you just gotta have a method to the madness. You can't just throw things at people and expect that it's going to change your world.
What do you feel like needs to happen with your brand where the pro athletes would want to wear your clothing?
I think we just need to keep developing it the way that we are, and into kind of that kind of better for our customer and better for the world vision. I think if we do it right and we keep building into that value proposition, I think we become the cool brand that's doing it the right way. And I think it attracts people like that want to put their name to something that enhances their image. And I think being conscious, being woke is in vogue. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think you got to have great product. Our product offering has been a little bit limited. We've kept our SKU count down, but we're expanding. And I think we're in a good spot to start formulating some higher profile relationships.
Amazing. I'm excited for you.
Thanks,
so
man.
before I let you go, I want to ask you 5 round questions. We'll make it quick. All right. So what's the most beneficial social network for promoting your brand?
I guess it depends what type of, for our brand, it's Instagram. A lot of it, it's Instagram for us.
Interesting. Have you dabbled with TikTok?
A little bit. Uh, a lot of it's demographic based. You could TikTok skews extremely young. Our customers is like very heavily millennial. Millennials are spending their time on Instagram for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Although TikTok is starting to take over. The problem with TikTok is it's not as commerce friendly yet.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain it's getting there because they need to start monetizing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be intelligent for us to lean into TikTok a bit more, because the other side of it is that the algorithm is very loose. Since they're not heavily monetizing yet, all they care about is user growth. So they're not restricting the algorithm, so you can get on that platform and grow an account rapidly.
Yeah.
So that's where the opportunity really is. Like, oh shit, like we can do this and reach a lot of people if we do it right at like no cost.
Right. What kind of content would you want to promote on TikTok? And
Um,
how would it differ from your YouTube content?
I think it would be choppier and like, shorter, be very quick. We probably use like graphics and like bubbles to like say things and communicate things. It would
Mm-hmm.
be almost like underproduced, a little bit more scrappy and friendly and fun. Probably the music choices would be a little bit more youthful, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, but
All
I mean,
right.
there's so many directions you can go. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't think we would be like overly goofy,
Mm-hmm.
but I still think we could build something smart um, that still like sticks to our brand.
Yeah.
You know,
Good luck.
I actually have an intern who's great, and she's a college student and she knows TikTok fairly well. So, considering just giving her the reins and go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I need to get one of those.
Yeah.
So, but before I let you go, I ask a signature question to my guests, which is, if there's one thing you could do to improve this world, what would it be?
Um, I think for me, it's tied to what um, what I'm doing. It's part of the reason that I am inclined to work as hard as I do. I think is that I really believe that health is the bedrock of like everything.
Mm-hmm.
Just like if you don't have your health, you have nothing. You know, so if I could inspire not only the socioeconomic cohort that can afford my products, but use the power of the brand to and the business to impact all different tiers of socioeconomic uh, just tiers,
Mm-hmm.
then I think I'm leaving a good footprint on the world. So yeah, I I think business is one of the reasons I wanted to build a business, is that I think businesses, you look at like what are the most influential things in the world, and like there's politicians, nations, and then large corporations and businesses, for-profit entities, um, and yeah, I mean, if we can build a big business that's focused on health, I think there's a lot of positive impact we can have to inspire people to live their lives in um, a healthier, more active way. And I think it has the ability to unlock greatness for everybody that touches. Um, yeah, so that's really my mission, to inspire healthier, more active living for everybody.
It's an amazing mission.
Thank you.
So for if someone wants to check you out and check out your website, where should they go?
WOLACO.com. WOLACO.com. Or you can go to our, Instagram's a fun place to check us out as well. It's just at WOLACO. I'd say those are the two sweet spots.
Amazing, Terry. Well, I love wearing my WOLACO compression shorts every week. I wear your shirt almost every night to bed. And it really is one of the most comfy shirts I have. So I'm a big
Awesome.
fan of the brand. So is my brother and who and my sister. So big fans, Terry. I'm big supporter of what you're doing, and I wish you the best. And thanks for hopping on the podcast.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. And thank you to the Sklar family.
Our pleasure.
Yeah.
See you, Terry.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye-bye.